Hi everyone, my dad kindly donated this wonderful Philips PM3070 oscilloscope to me. It's a real it's a real beauty. It's an old one. It's obviously the old CRT style display on it. I think the last calibrated date on it was 1998, 99? No, 98. So it's been around for a fair while. It's been sat in our garage for a while. We powered it up, and to our surprise it worked very, very nicely. Unfortunately, as I was snapping some photos for Twitter, it decided to pump out a big pile of white acrid smoke out of the back of it. Very much smells like a melted electrolytic. Seemed to be a non-fatal fault. The display stayed on whilst it was happening. Obviously I unplugged it very quickly, so I couldn't test whether the rest of the functionality was still up and running. I didn't really fancy filling the room with any more ridiculous white smoke. If I tilt this over, you can see on the back here, so the power comes in on this end, and running along this side is the main power board, main power supply, and there's a couple of electrolytic caps on this side. Unfortunately, I can't take it apart till I'm back in London. I don't have any of my tools with me. I'm just over here for the Christmas period. I have managed to get hold of a service manual, a full one. Not easy, because this thing is way out of service. But yeah, it turns out somebody very kindly had put one of these online in PDF format, so it was very useful. So hopefully I shall be able to do some repairs on it once I get it back to London. Right, so I've got it home, and I managed to take it apart. Some annoying little plastic clips that were a lot more difficult than the service manual made out to remove. Immediately spotted the culprit. If my camera will focus on it. Yep, so there's the failed part. As you can tell, it's completely split open. So this is a 0.22 microfarad cap. Not entirely what it's for. It might be maybe mains decoupling. Seems a bit weird. But it's the cap's rated at 250 volts, which is why I'm assuming it's mains decoupling. I might be completely wrong though, because I don't know that much about power supply design. But yeah, it's definitely dead. So I shall be replacing that, and fingers crossed it'll start working again, I hope. Right, this is the cap that I've just desoldered, the very obviously damaged one. As you can see, it's completely burst open. Yeah, I mean, check that out, that's just horrific. You can see the innards all falling out of that one on the sides. It's really there's no pretty obvious why it was spraying a whole bunch of white acrid smoke out of the back of it. It's completely and utterly dead. So as you can see, it's a 250 volt rated, 0.22 microfarads. Thank you, camera. Come on, focus. Yep. So yeah, I'll have to get a replacement for that one. I'm not sure what the current rating is for it, but I'm sure I could find out. Although certainly not by testing it directly. I don't think that'll tell me much at this stage. Now I've done a bit more research into this particular model of capacitor, and you'll see if I can find the. There we go. You'll see that on the top here it says X2. Now that's actually a safety rating. X2 with the X part of it at least, means that this is designed for mains filtering, so it's for EMI stuff. Essentially, this cap sits across the mains, directly across the mains. Now, obviously, if there's a big voltage spike, you don't want these things exploding like your average electrolytic, because they make quite a bang. You also don't want it catching fire. So these are metallized paper substrate. You can also get certain polymer ones, but they're basically designed to not catch fire. They're flame retardant. So they're safety caps. So you can also get Y rated ones, which go between the mains and earth, which is also for filtering. But those are designed so that they absolutely prevent any form of shock going through to the earthing, because obviously that earth could be the case of whatever product you've got this thing installed in. So you don't want the user getting a nasty shock. So the X2 ones are across the mains, and the Y ones are going from mains to ground. So obviously with this one, I think this one's a metallized paper one from when I looked it up. But there is some kind of polymer in there as well. I think that might just be to go between the glass casing and the end. As you can see, some of that sort of that foil in there. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting, and learnt something new. So I've now resoldered a replacement component in. I picked one up from CPC. Looks like this is exactly the same component as before. It's just a slightly newer unit, because the company who originally made them has now been bought out. So it's always good to have a slightly newer one. As you can see, this is a pretty heavy-duty power supply. And this is going off to the tube here, and not sure quite which one this is, but one of them is 14 kilovolts, the other one is 2.2 kilovolts. One's positive, one's negative. That's used to accelerate the electrons down the tube. And obviously there's a lot of analog stuff over here. I think that's all the DSP stuff for taking in the signals from the front end and processing them into something useful. And there's another board underneath, which I think is all of the more digital stuff. That hooks up onto the front control panel, which I don't know that you can see it very well there. The lighting's not very good, unfortunately. But yeah, there's a nice big chip on the front of there. I'm not sure whether that's something that's been done custom. It is a Philips chip, I think, and with this being a Philips unit, maybe custom for this particular device or range of devices. But anyway, with any luck, this filter cap should work and shouldn't spew out some horrible smoke. Right, now I've got the that power supply board clipped back in. It's got these clever little clip things that are absolute pain in the arse to figure out how to remove. Not so bad when you put them back in, but trying to remove them took me probably about 4 times as long as it did to diagnose the fault and actually fix it. As usual, little plastic clips, always a pain in the arse. But one thing I did want to show you just before I put it back together is this cool little feature, which is this is the power button from the front panel. It's on this big plastic rod, and the actual power switch is here. Obviously the front panel is up here, and if you clip this in, if I do it right, kind of hard with one hand, but this then attaches at the bottom down onto this, if it'll focus, down onto this power switch. So if I slide that in, so when you press the front, so obviously this is for isolation, because there's a there's a massive potential difference across the board. There's about 16, 17 kilovolts across the board. You don't really want your user getting zapped by that one. That wouldn't be very fun for them. So obviously for isolation purposes they've just got this big plastic rod. I just thought it was a nice neat little design. Right, now let's get the cover back on and hope I haven't broke it. So there's now mains plugged into this thing and it hasn't caught fire yet, which I suppose is a good sign. So let's switch it on for the first time and fingers crossed. Well, that's a good sign. The front's one, and there we go. It's working. Awesome. Now bought myself a probe for this thing, and with any luck this will actually work. I just picked this thing up really cheap. It's a 60 megahertz probe. It's like 15 quid from Maplin's. So just hook it up onto the test signal. You can see here that that's working wonderfully. So I'll drop the intensity slightly. Should be able to see it a little bit better on the camera. Don't know whether the focus is out. So yeah, so it seems to be working. Excellent. Yep, so that seems to be nicely calibrated. It lines up exactly where the calibration says as well. So perfect. Looks like I've got a working scope. Hope you've enjoyed this short video on the repair job, and I'm just glad to have this thing up and working again. It'd be such a shame to get rid of it, so always shows, even if you're not particularly experienced in fixing this kind of stuff, give it a go. With the older kit you can always find the nice big service manuals, so very useful for this kind of thing. Okay, cool. Thank you very much.